Hello, I'm doing the Mrs. Spud hooded towel design by Frills. So I wanted to show you how to do the parts before we do the towel. I've already made one hat. Basically, I wanted to do a couple of different colours. It's for my granddaughter Beth. I thought I'd do a couple of different colours of the hat and the lips. So that she has a choice of what colours to use, which I thought would be rather nice. So I've already done one pink hat. I'm now going to do a silver hat. So I've actually put in a variegated thread, a multicoloured thread, which I thought would also be nice to put around the silver. So I'm going to first of all do the placement line. Okay, so I've put the hoop back onto the machine with the top fabric tacked down, not tacked down, sorry, temporary glued down. I'm using a type of, well, it's vinyl, glitter vinyl, yeah, not glitter vinyl, it's shiny vinyl silver. It's really good to use them because these parts don't need to go into the washing machine. So I like to wash and tumble dry towels, and of course it's not recommended that you tumble dry things like glitter flex and vinyl, but because they're removable it will be able to go into the machine quite happily. So I'm glad to use these fabrics for that. So once it's finished stitching this, I will then remove from the hoop and put some felt on the back, any colour you want. I'm going to use white. At that point also you would change your bobbin thread to match the colour of whatever felt you're using underneath. I'm going to stick with white because I'm using white felt. I did use pink on the other one and I put pink bobbin thread underneath, as I'll show you in a bit. But yeah, so then I return to the hoop and we'll go from there. Back again, silly me, I've tacked down the silver on the hat. I forgot, then we do the centre of the flower. So we do that before we remove it from the hoop. Remove the hoop from the machine, should I say. So we do the centre flower of the flower, then I'll remove it and temporary spray adhesive the white felt onto the back and put it back into the hoop. Then I'll do the tack down line for that, remove from the hoop and trim around the edges top and bottom. So I'm stitching the flower centre, I'll put the white felt on underneath, return to the machine, do the tack down, remove from the machine, trim the edges and then put it back into the machine, and then I'll come back. Okay, so I've trimmed the top and the bottom fabrics and now I've returned the hoop to the machine and I'm now going to stitch the satin stitch, the edging around the hat. Again, I'm using my multicoloured thread for it, so I have lots of lovely pretty colours. And then when I finish stitching this, it's then the centre pestles that you stitch. It's not applique or anything, you just literally stitch that, which I'll change colours for and do a different colour in. And then I shall be back to show you when it's completed. Okay, so here are the finished hats for the Mrs. Potato Head. That's the front of them, and the back, if I turn over, you can see the felt, and they look nice. So yes, so that's that, they're done. Now, if I was using Velcro, what I would have done originally was before I attached the felt to the back, I would have sewn the Velcro to the felt and then put to the back so that you didn't have the Velcro stitching showing through to the front. So if you're going to use Velcro, I suggest that you stitch the Velcro onto the felt before you put it onto the back of the hat. Okay, I'm now going to do the lips. I've done one set of lips already, so I can show you shortly when I've done them. But I'm going to do some pink lips now, so I'm just going to stitch the placement line for the lips. And then using Glitter Flex again, I'm just going to spray a little bit of temporary spray adhesive onto them, onto the Glitter Flex, sorry. And then put that down onto the hoop and stitch the placement line, the tack down line, I beg your pardon. And then once that's stitched, I will be changing the thread to do the inner heart. I did it in white on the red lips, and I'm going to do it in a darker pink for the light pink lips. It's lovely having the placement, the tack down line. It goes around twice. It really tacks it down well. I think I said that when I did the hat though, so I'm probably repeating myself. Okay, excuse my arm getting in the way. Change the thread to the darker pink. Like that. And then stitch for the heart, which is quite a lovely little idea. The only problem is I'm going to be covering it up with a transparent cam snap, so I'm not sure we're going to be seeing the heart, sadly, but hopefully it will show up. You can even buy the heart-shaped cam snaps anyway, so you could always put a heart-shaped one over the heart, which would be a nice little touch. So when it's done that, it's then time to stick the felt onto the back, do the tack down line for that and trim it. Once I've done that, I'll come back. So I trimmed the edging, back and underneath, the top and underneath, sorry, and I'm now going around with the satin stitch around the edge of the lips, and then they'll be finished. And then I'll be able to show you what they look like when I get them off the hoop. They're stitching very nicely, like the hats did. I will come back shortly. So that's it. That's the lips finished, front and back, lovely and neat. So all I'll do now is, because it's on water soluble, I'll cut them out and then I'll just go around with my finger, cotton bud, cotton ball, whichever you want to use, to get rid of the excess stabiliser around the edges. They'll have lovely neat edges, whereas if you use tear away or even cut away, you end up with a bit of a white edge. So using water soluble stabiliser really does give a nice neat finish. So there we have it, and I shall be back in a bit when we do the ears for the design. So now it's time to do the ears for Mrs. Potato Head, Mrs. Spud, whatever we're calling her. I've done the placement line for the ears, and now I've got some pink felt, not felt, sorry, pink fleece that I need to place right side up. Pink fleece that I'm putting in the hoop, and we'll do the tack down lines for. I'm using tear away this time, as I want a little bit of substance in the ears when I attached them to the hooded towel, and the tear away stabiliser will just give us that little bit of stiffness to them. Once this is finished stitching, we then place another piece of felt right side down on top of the stitching. You can tell it's right side down because it's a lot fluffier, a thicker pile on that side. On the reverse it's quite flat, so you can always tell which side fleece should go. It's very easy. So once this is finished stitching, I'll put the fabric right side down. So you've got right side up for the first one and right side down for the second one. And there we go. And then stitch away again. For the tack down. And then once this finishes stitching, we can remove everything from the hoop. I also have done another hat and set of lips because I thought whilst I've got some stabiliser hooped, I may as well use it up and make another hat and set of lips. So we've now got 3 hats and 3 sets of lips. Only 1 set of ears because it's the ears go onto the actual design and get attached to the hooded towel, so you don't have interchangeable ears. Where I've cut some of the fleece away, there'll be little bits left, and I'm actually just going to use them as end bits to do the nose on the towel. As I said earlier, normally you do the nose separately, but I'm not going to because my granddaughter's only 2. I don't want the small nose being something that she can put in her mouth and possibly choke on, or also lose them. So I'm actually going to sew the nose onto the actual design applique style, as you'll see. So we finally come to the hooded towel part. Basically, I've got myself a hand towel here, and this hand towel measured, if it tells you, no it doesn't. Anyway, basically hand towels can vary in size. I just cut them in half along the rectangle widthways across, so I end up with 2 long pieces, and they can vary in depth size, but as long as it's between 8 and 10 inches you'll be okay. So this is actually 9.5 inches. Now you put right sides together, so make sure that you do have the right sides together, and just use some temporary spray adhesive in your hoop. And my design is going to go across, so when I've got the hoop in that way, the design is coming down this way. So I turn it to face me, making sure I've got the part that slides into the hoop towards me. And with the towel folded in half, I use the lines in the hoop to match up to the centre, and I just place the edge of the towel along the edge of the hoop and stick it down. Now, if I was going to be doing embroidery on a towel, I would use water-soluble Solvay to stop the design stinking into the towel. But as I'm using an applique, and there won't be actually embroidery on the towel, just around the edges, which will mainly be on the fleece, I don't use it because I don't really see the point, to be honest with you. So the towel's ready to go in the hoop. The head of the potato head will be this way, her eyes there, mouth and that there. So this will go into my hoop and I shall set up with it over there. Okay, so I've now got the towel sat in the machine, and what I do before I begin stitching is I do a trace design. I don't know if you can on your machine, but on my machine you can. I send the design and trace out where it's going to stitch, because I want to make sure that the design comes to the edge of the towel. So I can see it's going to start just off the edge, and again it will finish just off the edge, which is just about perfect. The design isn't centered on my screen. I've had to move it inwards a little bit to make sure it's come down to the edge. So I've not got it centered on my software, but I have on the machine. Now I shall just thread up the brown thread that I've got to match the fleece. I do the trace before I do the thread, otherwise it will stitch the thread round it, which I don't want to do. Some people do that, but I choose not to. So I'm just going to stitch the placement line. Oh, it's a bit fast for me. Got a bit carried away. So the placement line is now stitching. And when that's finished stitching, the first thing we do is put the ears on, which I've got here where I turn them inside out, because they will tuck under the face. So that's that, and now we'll stitch the right ear placement first. And then I'll making sure I've got the ears the right way around. Actually, no, that's going to be the left ear. I'm not sure it matters actually, but it looked different. So anyway, going to where the placement line is, as best you can get it. I hope this is going to be correct. But you do as best you can anyway. It's not too difficult to place it. But I can see by the line of the thread there also that it should be okay. And then stitch down, stitch along, and it's caught the ear in place. So I'm very happy with the placement of the ear. And then it will go across to do the other side. I'll stitch the placement line for the other ear. And I think this is probably going to be a little bit more important to make sure you line up so that you've not got ears that are sat like that. You want them so that they are sat more or less symmetrically. And for those of us that have a touch of OCD about us, which I think most of us do, although not officially, it's we do like to have our symmetry and everything just so. So you try and make sure that it's lined up as it should be and correct. And the ears are flat out. And I don't think they're as tucked in as I would like them to be. And I think they look okay. The thing is though, with the potato head, everything can be uneven because she's not a very symmetrical person, is she? But I think that looks good. I'm quite happy with the placement of that. So they've stitched on nicely. And at this point you can trim the ears a little bit, just so that you're removing some of the bulk from underneath where the face will be. Otherwise it'll be quite lumpy and horrible. So I just trim a little bit of the bulkiness away, but not going too close to the placement line because I don't want them coming off in time. And now we want to place the head on. And again, checking for the correct side of the fabric. That's the underside. You don't have to, but I use a tiny bit of spray adhesive here to make sure that that's caught in. But it's going to sit nicely on the fabric. So I just want to make sure that I'm going to, I think we need to, yes, we need to stitch the placement again down actually, from where it's going to be over the ears. Beg your pardon. We do that before we do the head. going to make sure at this point that the ears are laying flat still, so they don't get caught up and snagged into the machine, which I could so easily do. So just do watch them. Don't walk away and leave it all untended, because you might have the fright of your life when you return to find the ears are all caught up and stitched like that. It has happened to me, so it does happen. But yeah, the placement line should be the same place as the original placement line anyway. So now I'll just spray a little bit of spray adhesive, just because I want to keep it in the hoop comfortably, and not have it shift too much. I want to go under there. Oh. All fingers and thumbs, and sit it down nicely and start the machine again. And now it's going to do the tack down lines, and we don't have to worry about the ears this time because they're underneath the fleece. People have used fleece, they've used leatherettes, they've used vinyl, they've used all sorts. I think, and even toweling, but I think fleece is lovely because it's really soft. It's just nice for the kiddie to have. And of course these designs work great on hooded blankets also that you can make. Which is nice because of course the children can use them all winter long and not just for bath times or swimming times, etc. So that's the placement done. Now what I'm going to do is remove it from the hoop, trim, and then do the satin stitch after it's done the second placement round. I will trim it, do the satin stitch, and then come back to you. So we finished doing the satin stitch around the head, and now we start stitching the design. And the first stitch is the whites of the eyes. I just stitch a little bit and just trim that off. Basically we're going to do the whites of the eyes and then the eyelids, eyelashes and the pupils, and then I'm going to come back to you when we come to do the nose to show you what I'm doing in case you choose to actually stitch the nose to the design. And we'll come back in a bit. Okay, so I finished all the facial embroidery, and I've also did the placement line for the nose, and I'm just getting a tiny bit of fleece, tiny dot of temporary spray adhesive just to keep it in place, and move it under the hoop, under the embroidery foot. That's it. And as I say, you only do this if you don't want the nose to be loose. Excuse my arm going across to place the embroidery silk in the machine or on the stand. Yeah, so I'm doing the nose because the granddaughter that I'm making it for likes to put things in her mouth. So I don't want to risk anything. So now we do the tack down line. Nice and quick and easy. And I will also just slide it a little bit out of the hoop just to trim round quickly. I like to use these scissors, which are Ginger scissors. I think you can get other scissors that have a similar shape, but they're super sharp and they're a lovely shape to cut things with, especially when they're on the hoop. And put that down. I think it stitches another placement line round, and then it will do the satin stitch around the nose, and there we have the nose that's attached to the design. Simple, easy and quick. And that's it, and then I'll come back shortly, do the satin stitch now. I'll come back shortly and show you how to attach the hood to the towel. So now we've got the hooded towel part done, or the design on the hooded towel done, and that's the top side of it, and that's actually the underside of it. It looks quite nice still, doesn't it? So what we want to do now is join the hood, join the back together to make the hood. So we turn it right side out, so we're looking at the design, and then fold it in half to meet the middle there. And then what we're going to do is stitch along there. Now you can use an overlocker or just zigzag stitching, and then you can do a straight line as well just to add to it. So yeah, just whatever you can do, either zigzag or overlocking with an overlocking machine, or serger as some call it, and just go along there. So I'm going to do that, and then I'll come back and show you what's next. Okay, so we've stitched along the edge, and we've got a nice hood that we turn the other way out. And there we have what's forming is our hooded part of the towel. And now what we do, we want to join this to the main towel. So what I do is make sure that I'm looking down on the wrong side of the towel. You can usually tell by the label. So I'm looking down on the wrong side of the towel, and I just want to fold it wrong sides together to find the middle point. And then all I do is mark down there with a pin to tell me that's the middle. And then, just doing that, I get the edge of the towel, finding the middle again, and then I have my lovely wonder clips, which I seem to have mislaid at the moment because I've been sewing other things. So that's fine, we'll just use pins for the sake of the ease of it. But we just pin along and go all the way along. Now what I don't do is sew from that to there. I start from the middle and I sew outwards, then I go back to the middle and sew outwards. If I start here, the top or the bottom towel may stretch differently to the other side, and I could end up with the middle of the hood further along the towel, or vice versa, and therefore it would be out of line. So I sew from the middle out and from the middle out. That way you're ensured that you've got the hood in the middle. So I'm going to sew along there using zigzag again, and come back and show you the towel that's been connected as the hooded towel. So here we have the hooded towel sewn together. That's the one edge and that's the other edge. So that's that. And then what we're left to do now is adding the cam snaps to the mouth and the head for the lips and the hat, and then the pocket that we're going to put on down here where all the parts, the extra parts, will sit. So I shall come back when I've got the design ready in the hoop to do the pocket. I am hopeless. Completely forgot to do the pocket add-on and show you. I just went ahead and did it without recording it, so I do apologise. That's the finished towel. Basically what you do is you put it in the large hoop stabiliser, you do a placement line, and then you have a whole length of whatever fabric, toweling, fleece, whatever you want to use for your pocket. You put the bottom end just over the placement line at the bottom, and it goes up past the end of the top of the placement line. Then you stitch that in, then you bring the top down so it folds over basically, so you've got a nice folded edge. So you bring the top down and place it there to match the other bottom. So basically it's folded in half. Do another tack down, and then you trim it, and then you do the satin stitch. And it's as easy as that. I didn't really need to show you because you're all intelligent. Let's face it, all us women that do embroidery are intelligent after all. So yes, so that's how you do it. And there's my end result with extra bits in the pocket. I did 2 lots of lips and 3 lots of hats, sorry, and 3 lots of lips. And the nose that I attached. So yes, there we have it. A lovely design by French Frills as usual. I've never heard of a bad one, to be honest with you, and I don't think it's possible. I love them all. So happy stitching, everyone. And I'll see you again soon. Bye.